It was supposed to be my last delivery of the night. My phone buzzed with the address, the map blinking in the cold glow of the screen. I sighed, my body aching from hours on the road. Adam had texted earlier, just a quick, working late again. No miss you, no be safe, just another excuse wrapped in routine. We'd been together 5 years, but lately, it felt like we were living two separate lives under one roof. The city around me hummed with tired energy. Streetlights flickering, dogs barking in the distance, the faint smell of rain on the pavement. I parked near an upscale apartment building, the kind that looked too polished for someone like me. I grabbed the brown paper bag from my carrier and walked toward the elevators. As I climbed the stairs to the 5th floor, I double-checked the number on my screen, 5B. I reached the door, knocked twice, and waited. The sound of footsteps came from inside, and then the door opened. But the man standing there wasn't who I expected. He looked a little older than me, maybe 30, with soft brown hair and an easy, calm expression. He tilted his head, confused. "Hey, I didn't order anything." I glanced at my phone. "Oh, sorry." "It says 5B, he smiled faintly. "This is 5A. 5B's next door." I laughed nervously, embarrassed. "Guess I'm more tired than I thought." "It happens," he said, his tone light and kind. "Long day?" "Pretty much." "Been out since morning." He leaned against the doorframe, still smiling. "You want some water or something before you head back out?" "You look like you need it." I hesitated. I wasn't supposed to accept things from customers. But something about his voice, it wasn't flirtatious or forced, just genuine. I nodded. "Sure, thanks." He disappeared inside and returned with a cold bottle. "Here, name's Ryan." "Ethan," I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm but warm. For a second it felt strange, standing in this doorway, holding a bottle of water from a stranger. But there was something grounding about the small act of kindness. I'd been surrounded by people all day, yet somehow this moment felt quieter, more human. Ryan asked, "So, what's it like?" "Delivering all day," I chuckled. "A lot of waiting, a lot of traffic, and sometimes wrong doors," he grinned. "Well, maybe this was the right wrong door." I didn't think much of it then. It was just a small joke, something to laugh about before I finally found the right apartment. But as I turned to leave, he said, "Take care out there, Ethan." The way he said my name caught me off guard. Soft, deliberate, like he actually meant it. Most people just grabbed their order and slammed the door. Back in my car, I opened my phone. Another unread message from Adam. "Don't wait up." I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen, then locked it again. The apartment where we lived together suddenly felt like a place I didn't want to return to. When I finally got home, Adam was already asleep on the couch. The TV flickered across his face, half-empty glass on the table. I stood there quietly, wondering when we'd stop talking. When "I love you" had become something we said out of habit instead of feeling. I covered him with a blanket, then went into the kitchen. My reflection in the window looked tired, more than just physically. I thought about Ryan's easy smile, his calm voice, the way he looked directly at me, not through me. It wasn't attraction, it was recognition. A reminder that someone could still look at me and actually see me. I told myself it was just a random encounter. I'd delivered hundreds of orders to hundreds of doors. This one didn't mean anything. But later that night, as I lay beside Adam and stared at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about the stranger in apartment 5A. The next morning, Adam rushed out for work before I even woke up. He left a note on the counter. "Sorry for last night. Deadlines." I crumpled it gently and tossed it aside. My shift started in an hour, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to go. Still, I picked up my keys, slung my delivery bag over my shoulder, and stepped outside. The city air felt colder than usual, heavy with something unspoken. I tried to forget about Ryan, tried to push the thought out of my mind. But when I checked my delivery app and saw another route heading toward the same neighborhood, my heart skipped a beat. I told myself it was just coincidence, just another stop, but deep down I knew. Sometimes life doesn't send us to the wrong doors by accident. Sometimes it's the universe's quiet way of reminding us what we've been missing all along. 3 days passed before I heard from Ryan again. It was early evening when my phone buzzed. The message wasn't from Adam this time. It was from an unknown number. "Hey, this is Ryan. Hope I'm not bothering you. Just wanted to say thanks again for the water delivery the other night." I laughed softly to myself, remembering how embarrassed I'd been about that mix-up. I texted back, "You mean the wrong delivery?" He replied almost instantly, "I'd say it turned out pretty right." I smiled without meaning to. It had been a long day. Rain, traffic, cranky customers, and that one simple message felt like a breath of air I didn't realize I needed. That night, Adam came home late again. He dropped his briefcase by the door and went straight to the shower without a word. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, rereading Ryan's short text. I didn't know what to say to Adam anymore. I didn't even know if he'd notice if I did. Over the next few days, Ryan and I exchanged a few harmless messages. Just small talk at first, music, work, favorite takeout spots. He had a calm way of talking, like nothing in the world rushed him. There was no flirting, no hidden agenda. Just two people finding comfort in small conversations. Sometimes, I'd get a message from him while I was waiting for my next order. "How's the night shift?" Or, "You get to rest today?" Simple questions, but they meant more than I liked to admit. One Friday night, I had a delivery not far from Ryan's building. When I told him, he texted back, "You should stop by after if you've got time. I make decent coffee." I almost said no. I almost convinced myself that it was wrong, that I had no reason to see him again. But as I stared at the message, sitting in my car with the sound of rain hitting the windshield, I realized how lonely I'd become. It wasn't about Ryan, it was about feeling seen again. So, I went. Ryan opened the door, looking surprised but genuinely happy to see me. "Didn't think you'd actually come," he said with a small smile. I wasn't sure I would, I admitted. The smell of fresh coffee filled the room as he poured 2 mugs. His apartment was simple, tidy, filled with warm yellow light and quiet music playing in the background. We sat by the window, watching rain streak the glass. He asked about my deliveries, and I asked about his work as an architect. He told me about the building he was designing downtown, how it was meant to feel like belonging. That word, belonging, stuck with me. Hours slipped by like minutes. It wasn't romantic, not exactly. It was the kind of connection that fills the silence between two people who've both been alone too long. At one point, I told him about Adam, how we'd grown apart, how conversations had turned into background noise. Ryan listened quietly, never interrupting, never judging. When I finished, he said, "Sometimes we hold on to people because we remember who they used to be for us. Not who they are now." I didn't respond right away. His words felt too close, too true. As the clock neared midnight, I realized how late it was. "I should go," I said, standing up. Ryan nodded, his expression soft. "I'm glad you came, Ethan." When our eyes met, something unspoken passed between us. Not desire, something deeper, understanding, maybe even sadness. For a second, I thought he might reach out, but he didn't, and neither did I. Instead, I turned toward the door. Outside, the air was cool and sharp with rain. I sat in my car for a while before starting the engine, my hands gripping the wheel. My chest felt heavy, not with guilt exactly, but with confusion. When I got home, Adam was asleep again, his laptop still open beside him. I stood there, watching him breathe, wondering when I'd started feeling like a stranger in my own relationship. I covered him with a blanket and sat on the edge of the bed, staring into the darkness. My mind kept drifting back to Ryan's apartment, the quiet, the conversation, the feeling of simply being heard. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. Not technically, but part of me also knew that what I felt tonight wasn't nothing. It meant something, and that was enough to make me uneasy. I lay down next to Adam and listened to the rain against the window. It sounded almost like a clock, counting the moments between who I was and who I was becoming. Before I drifted off to sleep, Ryan's words echoed in my head. Sometimes we hold on to people because we remember who they used to be. And for the first time in a long while, I wondered if love was still enough to hold us together, or if I was just holding on to a memory. Days passed, and I didn't hear from Ryan again. Maybe he sensed my hesitation that night, or maybe he understood better than I did that something about this connection was dangerous in its simplicity. I told myself it was for the best. The fewer distractions, the fewer lines blurred. But that didn't stop my mind from wandering back to his apartment, his quiet words, or that small, knowing smile. Life fell back into routine, but everything felt slightly off balance. Adam's schedule grew even heavier. Meetings, deadlines, business trips. We barely saw each other anymore. And when we did, it was just surface-level talk. Did you eat? How was work? I'm tired. Words that used to mean care now sounded like maintenance. One morning I noticed Adam had forgotten something simple. My birthday. Not on purpose, not out of cruelty, just forgotten. It shouldn't have hurt as much as it did, but it did. I spent the day pretending not to care, telling myself grown men don't need celebrations. But deep down, a quiet ache kept growing. That night, as I drove through the city completing deliveries, the ache turned into something heavier. I wasn't angry, just lost. I didn't know where home really was anymore. Without realizing it, my route took me toward Ryan's neighborhood. I saw the familiar building lights glowing softly against the dark sky. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I should have kept driving, but instead, I parked. I sat in the car for a long time, watching raindrops collect on the windshield. I didn't have a plan. I didn't want to start something I couldn't finish. I just needed clarity, closure maybe, or courage. Before I could talk myself out of it, I got out and walked toward the building. The hallway smelled faintly of coffee and rain. When I reached his door, I froze, unsure if I should knock. Then it opened. Ryan stood there, surprised but not shocked. "Ethan," he said softly, like he'd been expecting this moment. "I didn't mean to come here," I said, my voice trembling. "I just needed to talk to someone who listens." He stepped aside gently. "You can talk." Inside, everything looked the same. The same quiet music, the same soft light, the same warmth that made me feel safe. I sat down, words tumbling out before I could filter them. I told him about Adam, the silence between us, the exhaustion of pretending everything was fine. I admitted I didn't know if I was still in love or just afraid to let go. Ryan listened without interrupting. His face was calm, kind, but serious. When I finally stopped talking, he stayed quiet for a moment, then said, "You're not the first person to confuse comfort for connection." I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" He leaned back, thoughtful. "Sometimes when something's been part of your life for so long, even if it stops working, it still feels safer than starting over. You think you're staying because you love them, but maybe you're staying because you're scared of what happens after." His words hit deeper than I wanted to admit. I stared at my hands, unable to speak. After a while, I said quietly, "I think I've been trying to fix something that neither of us has been building for a long time." Ryan nodded. "Maybe the universe sent you to the wrong door so you could see that." I looked up, meeting his eyes. There was no spark, no tension, just understanding. The kind that didn't need anything else. "I don't want to hurt him," I said. "Then be honest," Ryan replied. "Not just with him, with yourself." The silence between us felt final, like the closing of a chapter. I stood up and Ryan walked me to the door. Before leaving, I said, "You've been kinder to me than you needed to be." He smiled faintly. Maybe I needed it too. When I stepped back into the hallway, the air felt lighter somehow. I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. That night, I drove straight home. Adam was still awake, sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, surprised. "You're home early." I sat down across from him, heart pounding. For once, I didn't avoid the hard part. "Adam," I said quietly, "we need to talk." The conversation wasn't easy. There were pauses, tears, confessions of how distant we'd become. We didn't decide everything that night, but for the first time in months, it felt real. Honest. Later, when I went to bed, I didn't feel lonely, even though nothing was fixed yet. I just felt human again. Weeks passed. Things between Adam and me became simpler. Some days better, some not. We started talking again, even about small things. Sometimes, I caught myself wondering about Ryan, but not the way I used to. Not with longing, just gratitude. One afternoon, while making deliveries, my app sent me near his street. I didn't mean to look, but as I passed by, I saw him standing on his balcony with a mug of coffee in his hand. He spotted me instantly. For a moment, our eyes met. We didn't wave. We didn't need to. There was a quiet understanding between us, the kind that doesn't fade. I smiled, and so did he. Then I kept driving. That night, as I finished my last delivery, the wind carried a faint chill through the air. The city lights blurred in the distance, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. Maybe my delivery had gone to the wrong door that night. But sometimes the wrong door is exactly the one you need to find yourself again.